Okay, so now you know a bit about Drosophila, we need to show you how you're going to work with them. Now, you're going to work in pairs, you're going to get a tray each. In that tray you're going to have lots of bits of equipment. You're going to have a mouse mat, or part of a mouse mat in there, a beaker of crushed ice, an ice slab, a petri dish, a brush, a funnel, and you're going to have a vial in there, and in that vial there's going to be some Drosophila. In there you're going to have 5 or 6 or thereabouts wild type, the normal Drosophila. They're the ones that you've just seen photos of, and there's a picture of one here. And you're going to have 1 mutant. Now those mutants have been, in most cases, artificially created by blasting them with gamma rays. But we've got 6 different mutant Drosophila in the room. 2 or 3 of each mutant. And in that vial there's 1 of them. So you've got 5 or 6 normal and 1 mutant. What you've got to try and do is determine A, what the mutant is. Give it a name. There's a sheet of paper on there to give it a name. And you've got to try and work out how many males and how many females you've got. Now your teacher should have told you how to identify those. So, flies are flies, and they're obviously going to fly all over the place, so you need to know how to anaesthetize them so you can work with them safely and without harming them. First thing you've got to do is get them nice and cold. Now, the vial that you've got them in, you're going to tap it gently but firmly on the mat. Now take care not to smash the tube, that's why you're using the mat. So you give it a nice tap. There you go. Now that tapping stuns them, and they'll all be stunned at the bottom of the tube or the vial, and they'll stay stunned for just a few seconds. Once they're stunned, you need to place them in the beaker of crushed ice. Now it's that thing that cools them down, obviously, and that's what anaesthetizes them. Now, as they're cooling down, and that process takes a minute or so, as you can probably make out just here, there's the slab of ice, and you need to place your petri dish on it. Now that petri dish is going to get really, really cold. Now what you might want to do is place a sheet of paper under here, or perhaps on the ice, just so that you've got a nicer background to be able to observe them. Now once you've waited a minute or so for this to cool down, you then need to transfer them into here, onto your petri dish. So there you go, there's a petri dish, so you can see it. Take them out, don't be too concerned. As they're cold, they're not going to fly off. And providing you've got that petri dish nice and cold, there, they're not going to go anywhere. If that warms up, they'll be away. So the key thing is keep that nice and cold. They can stay there for 20-30 minutes, no problem. But remember, as soon as they warm up, they'll escape. Then you've got to identify them. Remember, you've got to try and separate the males and females. Now this process here is called pushing, and as you can see, what I've got there is just a paintbrush, and you push them quite nicely into different piles. Now they've got little hooks on their legs, so they should attach quite nicely to the brush, enable you to push them. What I've got here is a ×8 eyepiece. That should be sufficient for you to bend down and identify them. So remember, what you've got to do is separate the males and the females, and try and name your mutant. That's the best technique I find. You might find a better technique for yourself, but getting your eye right up to the eyepiece lens and looking at the flies and seeing what you've got. Now your teacher will tell you what to do when you've separated the males and the females and you've identified your mutant, but the simplest way to get, and when you finish with them, the simplest way to get your flies in here back into your vial or your boiling tube is to use the funnel. As long as you're quick, keep them nice and cold on that block of ice. You'll put your funnel into your test tube and then just tip them in. Okay? Your teacher will tell you what to do next. Have fun.